Thank you. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, guess a number. Again, I'm going to fork it over to my personal GitHub, Tom Preet, and then I'm going to clone it down while that's copying over. I'm in a new VS Code window. I'm going to zoom in. There we go. I'm going to CD into desktop, CP challenges, Oscar, list everything out. So I've got all these challenges in here. I'm in Tom Preet number guessing game. And I'm going to copy the link to GitHub and then git clone it. Number guessing game. List everything out in there. And there I have number guessing game. So I'm going to CD into number guessing game. List everything out. So I've got my README, my app.js, index.html, and styles CSS. And I'm going to go ahead and open this into a new VS Code window. And feel free to stop me and ask any questions. I don't know what the hell this is. Sure, I'll trust it. All right. So in this challenge, we're creating a number guessing game that it's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to guess a number. Let's actually read the README. So here we're going to implement HTML elements that use specific attributes to perform actions, implement CSS styling using ID and classes, use JavaScript to interact with your web page, use HTML or DOM methods to edit, add, delete elements on your web page in real time. So the user should be able to guess a number until they guess the right number. The user should be able to input a number and click a button to submit a number. The web page should inform the user to guess a higher number, guess a lower number, or tell the user they guessed the correct number. Also, they should list all guessed numbers the user guessed during the session. Your number guessing game will consist of HTML file, CSS file, and JavaScript file. It looks like that needs to be updated. Let's take a look. All right. So let's go ahead and just quickly open this into, open the HTML file into the browser just to see what we're working with. And feel free to stop me and ask questions, whatever. All right. So first thing I need to do, I'm going to link my link my styles and my JavaScript to my HTML file. So, and right here, your link to your CSS file. So I can say styles, CSS, and app.js. So can anybody tell me what the async defer means?
I don't know the async part, but defer usually means when the Windows like finish loading, then it loads the JavaScript.
Yep. So the main thing, when in doubt, just always include async defer. Async, yeah, it just, if there's things that are loading, I think asynchronously on the web page, it will load this last. But async defer just always includes this. Defer, as Tim just says, just defers loading the JavaScript file until the DOM is mounted or until the web page is mounted in the web browser. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up app.js. I'm going to split the screen there. Great. I'm going to look at styles as well. Cool. Oop. Close that. I'm going to just split that. All right. So if I refresh this, cool. Looks like we have kind of changed a little bit. And we can look at the console. So what it did, it's displaying hello Oscar Platoon right here. You can see we're console logging hello Oscar Platoon in our app.js. Our app.js file is loaded in our index.html file. And our CSS has some default styling with font family, font weight, text align, font, and the H1 tag is a font weight of 400. All right. So let's go ahead and add some HTML here. Again, it's not important that it looks super, like, be creative with it. but I'm just going to add, what should I add to it? I'm going to add just a div with a p tag that informs the user. Let's play a number guessing game, but we have to like actively tell the user like how to play the game. So I'm going to say, please guess a number between 1 and 100. I'm going to refresh there. Cool. And now we need to have a way for the user to actually guess a number. So what HTML element should we use for a user to guess a number?
So use a button, right?
Use a button?
Oh, no, never mind. I misheard you. Thanks.
Text input and then a button to submit.
All right, perfect. So you have a text input. So input has some attributes like type. So if I want to type and put like number, let's just look at what that looks like. So it looks like it's got this thing. I can type in, but I don't like that. I'm just going to have it be text. So if I refresh that, I can just type in whatever I want in there. Type, I'm going to say name, input number, placeholder. So we have a placeholder example. I'm going to say 50. And I'm going to give this an ID of input number. Now, if I refresh that, there we've got an example of 50. Okay, let's see what we got.
Sorry, do you mind slowing down for a bit?
I'm sorry?
Do you mind slowing down for a bit?
Oh, yep.
Sorry, I just need to catch up.
Okay, yeah. Feel free to follow along. So what I did was I added a div just with a p tag with some text that informs the user what to actually do. Please guess a number between 1 and 100. The next, I added an input tag, so we can accept an input from the user. The type of the input is text. I just added this name attribute. I don't necessarily think that's specifically necessary right now, but I generally will add this there. I added a placeholder. So what kind of shows up as an example input for the user. And I gave it an ID of input dash number because I might want to reference this.
Is your choice of double quotes for the placeholder totally random?
Yep, that's totally random. And again, if you're going to decide to use single quotes or double quotes, try to keep it consistent, but it doesn't really matter. But just for, just to keep things consistent. All right, so I've got an input. I'm just going to create another div, and I'm going to have a button to actually submit. A button, submit number. I'm going to give this button an ID of literally just submit button. And did anybody do it a different way? Did anybody use like a form to submit? No.
Can we try it that way too, just to see what kind of options we have?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. But let's go this way and then we can refactor it using a form. So if I wanted to do a form, I'll actually just show you. Form, you can have an input just like I did up here. I'm just going to do input there. And I'm going to also do a button down here. And I believe I'm going to do type submit. And if I'm not mistaken, that right here, this button is directly related to this form. So if I come over here and refresh this, if I click something like that and click submit, notice how it kind of refreshed. It's because these two elements are within a form. And if I click submit, it submits the actual form. I can also type in like 50 and click enter, and that will also submit the form. I'm just going to copy that out right now. All right. And we'll come back to that if we have time. All right. So I think that's good for right now. And I'm just going to refresh. So we have an input and we have a submit button. Now let's move over to the JavaScript and see how we can go about extracting, getting like the input value from a user. So I'm going to bring over, come here. So if we're picking a number between 1 and 100, the first thing we need to do is set like a random number for that is the actual number that we need to select. So let's first write a function that picks a number between 1 and 100. So I'm going to do const pick random number. This is literally just a function that's going to return a number between 1 and 100. So random number. I'm going to actually I'm going to create a global variable called random number and initially assign it to 0. And this random number, I'm going to assign it to math.floor. So math.floor, math.random times 100. Let's see what that looks like. And if I were to execute this, console log, or actually, so pick random number reassigns the global random number variable to math.floor, math.random. So what does math.random return?
It returns a number between 0 and 1.
Yep, it returned, excuse me, a number between 0 and 1. And I'm multiplying that by 100, and I'm grabbing the floor of that. So I'm going to pick a random number. I'm going to execute this function right when the page loads. I can also do like window on load, do this. Window.on load. Is that how it works? How does the on load?
I believe so.
On load, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it works almost like a function.
Yep. So I can do it. On load, pick a random number, and I'm just going to console log random number. So if I come over here and look at my web page, and if I refresh that, we got 0. That's not right, is it? Is it always going to be 0? Yeah, so it looks like it's always 0. But if I come over here and add that, let's see if this works. So there we go. So Oscar Platoon. Will this always, am I able to get 100 from this? I believe I also have to do +1 because if I math.random, if it gives me 0.99, I get the floor of that, or 0.99 times 100 is like 99, and I grab the round down with math.floor. The answer is 99. Then I have to add 1 to get it to 100. Also, I'm selecting a number between 1 and 100. So I always need to have at least 1. All right. But I don't know if I need the onload. I just want to see if this works still.
Couldn't you use math.ceiling instead?
That would do it, I think.
So if I did math.seal and didn't need the 100 or the 1 there. Oh, so yeah, if I refresh that, that'd probably also work. I can run this, I can like do a for loop and pick random number and console log it like 1,000 times to see all the different numbers that I get from that.
Hey, Tom, I have a question.
Yep.
So whenever you're submitting the number that you want for the page, it's automatically reload, correct? Wouldn't that change your random number each time you submit? Or how do you keep it persistent when you choose to?
So that's if I have a form, it'll automatically re-render the page, and we'll cover that if we do use form. But essentially, you use event.prevent default function that prevents the form from reloading the page every time. But that's why I'm personally not going to use a form, because I don't want to have to do that. But yeah, so when you submit a number, you use event.prevent default to prevent the form from refreshing the page.
For the window.onload, why didn't it seem to make a change whether you used that or did not?
Because I think it was calling the console log before the page actually loaded. I don't know. I've rarely ever, I actually never used the window.onload, but yeah. All right. So I've got this random number and I want to return just random number, just because. All right, so we have a random number that's generated every single time. Whoop. Let's just make sure. So if there's my random number. Now what I want to do is when I enter in this value and click submit, to store that value somewhere. So in order to do that, when I click the submit number button, I want to extract the value from the input. So if I come over here in my app.js, I can do document.getElement by ID. So, and I want to grab this element or the button. So grab element by ID, submit button, and I can add an event listener, or I can literally just say on click. So I'm adding an on click event listener. And I'm just going to console log clicked. So I'm doing document.getElement by the ID. Submit button. So whenever I'm grabbing that element, I'm adding an on click event to it. So when I click it, it executes this function. So if I refresh the page and I click that, notice how it says clicked. What questions do you have about grabbing an on click? There's other ways to do it as well, but this is the one way I'm doing it. Let's see. Someone not muted. All right. So when I click that, I want to actually extract the value or the number from the input. So I'm going to say let like user number equals document dot another get element by ID, but this time I want to grab the element by ID from the input number, and I can do dot value on that to extract the value. what the hell? Not node value, just value. So if I console log user number, I just want to see if I'm able to actually extract the number from there. So if I say 50, when I click submit, I should see console log 50 right there. There we go. 50, 67. There we go. Cool. But now what do I want to do? So I grab the user number. Let's look at the challenge again. So the user should be able to guess the number until they guess the right number. The user should be able to input a number and click a number to submit the number. Okay, I've got there. The web page should inform the user to guess a higher number, guess a lower number, or tell the user they guessed the correct number. So let's go ahead and do that part of it. All right. So I can say how, let's see. Should I write a separate function to check the number, or should I keep it all inside of this area?
Use a separate function because
Yep.
each of them were doing different functionality.
Yep. So again, we want to keep our code modular. So I'm going to create another function called const check number. And this is going to take in a number. And the first thing I can do is I can say, hey, if the number equals the random number, I'm just going to console log right now. You guessed, or like you won. Else if number is greater than random number, I'm going to say console log guess a lower number. Else guess a higher number. So right here, if the number equals the random number, that means I've won. Else if the number equals a random number or is greater than the random number, we want to guess a lower number. Else we'll guess a higher number. So with that, I'm going to, let's see, what should I do? Big number. I'm trying to think. Should I just return? Let's just, yeah, I guess let's just return check number with the user number. I'm wondering if there's anything I need to do before that.
Is that gonna come out as a string or as an integer?
That's a good question. Let's find out. So if I do, so let's just guess. So that's the guessed number, or that's the random number that the computer generated. Let's guess that 90 and submit, and it tells me to guess a higher number. So it's a good question. Let's console log the type of user number. So I want to see the type of the user number input. So 99, I'm going to click submit. So it looks like it's a string, but I want to convert it to a number.
So that's why the else got ran, because neither of the other ones passed the check.
Yep. So there's a couple ways to convert it.
But can't you just not make it a strict equals? JavaScript will evaluate 90 as a string and 90 as an integer the same with just in like the double equals instead of the triple equals.
Yeah, I can do that as well. I can just make this a check by value, not type, but I kind of want to be specific. And
how does the type conversion work with just the greater than sign? Like in your else if?
it doesn't work. So like if number is a string and this number is a random number, it will always probably return false. So I'm going to convert the user number into an actual number. And I can either do number and surround that, or an easy way is just put a plus sign there. So I'm converting it to a number right there, and I'm inputting it into the check number. So when it comes into the check number function, it is a number. So let's refresh that and check 51. Hopefully it works. Great, I won. If I check 50, guess a higher number. 52, guess a lower number. All right, very cool. But what does it say? What do I need to do? The web page should inform the user to guess a lower number, higher number, etc. So what do I want to do? Where is it? Game action. So there might be, so somewhere on the screen I need to put like you won, guess a lower number, guess a higher number. I'm going to actually do that right here. I'm going to add a div and add a paragraph tag, and I'm going to do input number below and click submit submit number. Is that what it says? Submit number. And I'm going to make this an ID of game action or game message. All right. So when I click this, when it comes into here, I want to actually change this value or this text to you won, guess a lower number, guess a higher number. All right. So I can do that by right here and guess a number where when my guess number equals the random number where I won. I'm going to do document dot get element by ID game message, and I'm going to say inner HTML equals you won. I can do the same thing down here. Instead of you won, I can say guess a lower number. And likewise down there, guess a higher number. So I just want to see if this works, and then we'll kind of step back. And so if I refresh it, I have an input, a number below, and click submit number. If I click 50, it says guess a lower number. If I guess 10, it says guess a higher number. If I guess 12, it says I won. So I've got, it's sort of working now. When I submit a number, I want to clear, every time I submit, I want this input box to go back to empty again. So what I can do there is when I submit a number, I can reassign this value to an empty string. Value equals an empty string. So I extract the value, assign it to a user number, and then I just make that value of that input an empty string again. So if I come back here and I refresh the page and I do 50, there we go. So it like resets the input box to an empty string.
What's the difference between setting value and setting inner HTML?
So the input value is that value of the input here. So this has an actual value to it, whereas inner HTML actually changes the inner HTML of whatever element I'm targeting. So value is an attribute on the input tag. All right. What other questions do you have?
So when it updates the inner HTML for the guesses, it's no longer inside a paragraph tag.
This part?
Yeah, when it updates that.
This is still a paragraph tag. I'm just updating the inner HTML portion of that to whatever this value is, or whatever this message is. So it literally just changes the text. So if I can inspect the elements, it's still a P tag, a paragraph tag. It just changes what's in between, essentially changing the text there.
Okay.
All right. All right. Let's see what else I need to do. The web page should list all guest numbers the user guessed during the session. All right. So where should I do that? I'm going to create a list. Let's do an ordered list, and let's have it be empty initially. I'm going to name this number list. And with that, I need to, what do I need to do? When I guess a number, I need to push it, essentially add an element to the number list. So I guess a number. Should I create a new function for that, or should I do that all up in here? Does anybody have a preference?
I would say all at once, because I guess you want the person that's doing it to see what numbers they've guessed, so they're not repeating it like live versus just pushing it all at once at the end once they won.
All right. So should I do it within here? I mean, like, should I write the code to the logic to do that in here, or should I separate that out into another function?
I guess it would be easy to read if you do it as a separate function.
Yep. So I'm going to do const add number to list, and I'm going to do number again, and then here, how do I go ahead and add a? So does anybody? So let's just look at what an ordered list. Ordered list, Jesus. List HTML. What elements do I need? So here's an ordered list, an example. So I have an ordered list here. So essentially I'll need a list here, like 1. These are all my guest numbers. 60, whatever. So if I come over here, I'll want to have, or let's actually make it an unordered list. Because I don't want that. It doesn't really matter. So here I want my guest numbers to show up like so. So if I have an empty, let's actually keep this as an ordered list. So I have an empty ordered list. What I'm going to have to do is create a list element, or a list, yeah, essentially a list element, and add that number to it. So I can do that by creating a new element. So I can do let new element equals document dot create element. And this, what goes into this create element function is the actual element. So I can say, make it a div, I can make it a button, but what I want to do is make it a list.
Does it matter if it's capitalized or not?
I'm not quite sure. I don't think it does, but
I don't think it does. I had lowercase in mine, and it worked for paragraphs at least.
Yep. So let's go ahead and, again, I'm a new developer. I need to add elements to a web page. So I'm going to say how to add elements to a web page, or to HTML in JavaScript. So creating new HTML elements, new nodes. So it looks like, so I create an element. Now I need to create a text node and append that. Let's actually take a look. Should I copy this over? So here I'm creating a new paragraph tag. I'm creating what text should go in between that paragraph tag right here. And then I'm appending the text to that paragraph tag right there. But then I need to append the paragraph tag to this div1. So right here, I'm grabbing the element by ID. So I'm grabbing that div1, and then I'm appending the paragraph tag to the div1 so it would display right after this one. So I created a list element. I'm just going to keep all these the same. Const node equals document. So I'm literally just kind of copying this right there. But instead of this is new, I'm going to add the number to it. And then this portion of it, document.getElement by ID. I don't want it to be a div1. I want it to be the number list. And new node. Oh, it looks like I missed this section. So right here is where I'm appending the number to the list. And then where's that coming from? And then I want to append the list element to the number list. Num list. I'm going to change these. Num text. All right. So add the number to the list. So let's go ahead and run that function up here by passing in the user number. And let's see if that works. So if I refresh this, come over here, I'm going to add 50. All right, I've got 50 that showed up. 65. Great. 78. And then 7. Cool. So I've got the core logic worked out. Is that everything that I needed to do? What questions y'all have about the number guessing game?
Could you go down to the bottom again?
Yep.
Just trying to take notes on this.
This might be an offline question kind of thing, but I kind of broke my debugger in VS Code while trying to follow along with this. Like it's only able to like run and debug a Chrome file now. It doesn't do that correctly either.
Andrew, I could give you a call in Slack if you want.
Thank you very much.
All right. So with that, cool. Let's go ahead and you can even like make things super. I'm just gonna copy this over here. Number list. See if this works. So if I pick 46, yay. So right there, I added a background style image. So to the body of the entire web page, I added a background image style and I added the URL to that image. And then I changed like the font size, all of that stuff to make it do that. Jack, did you have a question?
No, that's just awesome. Like I refactored my solution to that, and it answered all like the stuff I wanted to do in making it better.
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead. All right. Last thing, let's talk about local storage. Let's see if we have. What we got? Local storage. So, for example, this isn't persistent. Maybe as a new user, I want it to display like my name up here every time I come in here. So with that, I'm going to add some so let's play a number guessing game. So above here, I'm going to add some HTML, some div. I'm going to add an H1 tag with an ID of welcome. Welcome. And I'm going to add a div with another ID of get username. And I'm going to say there's a paragraph tag that says, please enter your name. So I'm going to extract get the username from somebody. I'm going to grab an input for the username. And I'm going to say ID equals username, type user name, and placeholder. I'm going to say username. And I can do a button here that says submit username with an ID of submit username.
Can you quickly explain or what that type means in the input tag?
I think that's just something I did. You can like put type text, type whatever, like type number, etc. But it's not necessary. honestly, this should be type text. It just says what type of input is that input box for.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yep. So let's talk about local storage. So the first time I come here, this application doesn't know anything about me. But if I type in my username, like Tom, and click submit, I want it to say welcome Tom. And every time I come back here and refresh and come back to this web page, I want it to remember my name that says welcome Tom every single time. So with that, let's see what I got. I can, where am I going? So I'm up here, just like I did with the input from the number. So the input number, I can do the same thing for username. So I can say document.getElement by ID, submit username. I'm going to do an on click. And this, when I click this function, I want it to console log my username somehow. So when I click that, I want to extract the value from the input. So I can say let username equals document.getElement by ID, user dash name dot value. So now I can refresh that, and now I can type in Tom. I click submit. I see Tom over here. But when I refresh this, I want it to say welcome Tom. So with that, I can do, I'm just going to do local storage dot clear. All right. So once I have that, I can say welcome Tom. So instead of here, so I've got my username, but now I want to actually change this welcome to say welcome Tom. So I can say document.getElement by ID, welcome dot inner HTML equals, I'm going to do some string interpolation, welcome username. So if I come back here and refresh this, I say Tom, I can say, it says welcome Tom now. But after I click that, I don't want it to, like, Justin, I want to get rid of this input box as well, because once I have my name, I want this to be persistent. So I can say welcome username, and I can say return document.getElement by ID, and the ID is get username. This entire box, if I want to remove this entire element, I can remove it by doing .get username .remove. So I'm removing this get element by ID, this entire element of the page. So if I refresh that, I say Tom, it says welcome Tom. But when I refresh this, it kind of goes back to normal, which is what I don't want. So after I extract the value from the username, I can store stuff in the browser. So there's this thing called local storage, and local storage is literally just, think of it as an object of strings. So there's a couple ways. So right now my local storage on this web page, there's nothing in here, but you can access the local storage by doing local storage dot get item or set item. Get item is you want to get a value by a key. So if I had something in local storage, so let's actually just go back here. Clear. If I did local storage dot set item takes two values, like name as well as the name of whatever user I want. So if I do that and then the local storage, I have an object with a string of Tom. I can keep adding to local storage dot set item. I can say number like 30. Oh. But now if I do local storage and look at that, notice how number is a string of 30, even though I set it as a number. So just remember, local storage sets the values, converts everything to a string. Even an object, if I set this value to an object, it would be a stringified object. Questions about local storage, about kind of how that works?
What about set item?
Set item, like I just did right here.
Oh, I see it now.
Yep.
Then what about get item?
So get item, I can do get item, and I can grab an item by its key name. So if I wanted to grab an item by the name, it'll return Tom. If I wanted to grab item by a number, that number key, it's a string value of 30.
So is this sort of like a cookie or a cache letter? Could you use it to like reset your cache on a public website?
Yep. Yeah, you can definitely do that.
That's handy.
Yep. And in order to clear local storage, you can do local storage dot clear and invoke it. And then if I look at local storage again, there's nothing in there.
But that only affects your current tab, is that right?
Yep. It only affects this current tab or this current window, whatever this address is. So going back to grabbing a username, so I can do local storage dot set item, and maybe I'm going to say the username, and the value is username. All right. So now if I go Tom, so first let's actually check local storage. There's nothing in there, and I click submit username. And now I type in local storage. I have a username of Tom in there. So I've got username Tom, but now if I refresh that, the web page says welcome nobody. So the web page doesn't know anything, but if I click in local storage, Tom is still there. So with that, I can write another function. There's just says like const does user exist? Question mark. And that will load every time I come to the web page. And what that will say, like I can say, hey, if local storage dot get item username, if there's a value there, I can move this actually up there because I want to set that value, the username here. So I can actually get item. So if there's a value in local storage, so that's true, then I can say let username equals local storage dot get item username. So I'm grabbing the storage or the value from local storage. So I'm grabbing the username from local storage and now I'm setting it there. So I'm setting the inner HTML to welcome username. Let's see. All right. And now down here, I can, does user exist? So I want to invoke that every time I come to the web page. So, but do I even need to, so here, maybe I don't even need this value here. I can just literally invoke, I can even actually put this up here. So if the user, if there's when the page loads, I check this, does user exist? It comes in here. If there's somebody in local storage, I assign that welcome.username, and then I remove that element from the DOM. And then down here, I can also just check does local, I can invoke this at the very end as well. So when I set an item, I can just call does user exist? So which will, I set an item or I set a username to local storage, then it comes into here, does user exist? Comes up here, checks to see if there's a username in local storage, which there is because I already set one here, and then it runs through that logic. All right.
Does this work if they happen to click submit username without typing anything?
It's a good question. So if I type something, clicks, and then I refresh, yeah, it looks like local storage. Yep, looks like it does. So maybe we should add some, where'd it go? Set item username. Oh.
Or is there a way to like gray out the button if they don't type anything?
Yeah, hold on a second. There's something missing in here. So local storage. So right here, looks like I'm still not getting the username. So I can say document.getElementById. Did I delete that? User name dot value. Does user exist? Because when I submit, where'd the on click go? Oh, right here. On click, grabs that user, the value, add it there. Sorry, Sarah, what'd you say?
Is there a way to gray out the button if they don't type anything in the input field?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. I'm just trying to think of how to do that manually. So if you can check that, you can say like, but yeah, I mean, you can definitely do that. You can say, you can grab this value, but then you'd have to add like an on change event handler. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely possible.
Okay.
But here I can say, hey, if I wanted to make sure that no one, I'm going to say const username again. If username dot length is equals or is greater than 0, then come in here.
Doesn't a string have a length of 1 in JavaScript if it's blank?
No, I believe it's 0.
I might be thinking of C++.
Yeah. So if I come in here and local storage, I'm just going to clear it. And now if I refresh this, now if I say Tom, welcome Tom, but now if I keep refreshing, notice how it keeps my name persistent. And if I look at local storage, I can see Tom in there as username. For now, if I local storage.clear, and now I refresh the web page, it goes back. But when I click that, nothing really happens. Maybe I want to add something up there. But yet that's where you might want to add like else. You can add some like else statement, like else, add like an alert to it. So let's just now, in addition to adding all the number, like again, I can add like numbers, even though I can add a bunch of empty numbers. I should probably add some error handling up into check number as well. So you can definitely do that. But yeah. Anyway, what questions do y'all have?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I may have just missed it somewhere, but like I see where so on click is where it activates the submit username, but then when you refresh the page and it has it in local storage, what calls okay, yep.
So right when the page loads, right when the JavaScript loads, it runs pick random number function as well as does user exist. So it comes up here, checks to see if there's a user. Yep.
And because it's JavaScript, it doesn't matter if those are above or below the functions, right? So we can just like have all the functions on the bottom or the top, however preference.
Correct. That's where we're getting to hoisting in JavaScript. But yeah. All right. Does somebody else have another question?
Oh yeah, just do you mind scrolling up in that JavaScript file? There was where is it? Oh, right there in the function where you're getting the user number from the submit button, where you're returning check number there. I think I missed, what's the plus symbol in front of the variable there?
This is an easy way to convert a text number to an actual type number.
Okay, that's what I assumed. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thanks.
And you can even just do number and encapsulate it as well. That also converts it. But I might want to check something in there as well. Like if I type in type in some text, I'll probably want to add some error handling somewhere to handle for users doing what they're not supposed to be doing. All right. So I'm gonna